Hello, darling. I thought you'd never get rid of that girl.
What are you doing here?
Waiting for you.
What, the hospital?
I didn't like it there.
How did you get here?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
Welcome back to Ookum Spookum Podcast, children. I am your host, Tara, Lord of Hatred, Darkness, Gen Z representative, and this is...
Sarah. I am the Gen X love and light, hippy dippy energy fields. All is connected in the Akashic Record reading person tonight.
Speaking of which, tonight's topic is a dour one for some people, and we're going to play a game. Is there a God?
So we're just going to jump right into this, right?
Yeah.
There's like no easing in, no foreplay, just going right in for this.
There is no foreplay for death.
Is there a God? Okay, is there a God? I believe in energy. I believe in a harmonious chord that resonates throughout the entire universe and that we are all connected. I believe there's a plan. I believe in... I guess that's the best way to say it. I believe.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I would say I don't think God with a capital G exists. I think spirits and very, very old spirits can eventually turn into deities given like enough attention, enough whatever. Like I think there are things that we cannot see around us. I think energy exists, most certainly, obviously. And I think we do not understand its movement enough to claim that this is not possible, you know? And even then, like, I don't think there's any one specific spirit that just made all of this. I think we made spirits, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does. And I also think that we are I've heard that saying before, and I know you're probably going to laugh at me for being naive, but like, we are the way that the universe experiences itself, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I find that, capital G God, when it's coming to like sitting on a cloud, all that stuff, not really a big fan of that, but I will say that I have done journey work into, this is going to sound really crazy, but I've done journey work, and when I have journey work, I do go someplace that kind of looks like that. It looks like celestial, I guess is the only way that I could explain it. And so, but I didn't see like Jesus chilling there with like capital G God. Like that wasn't the vibe.
I think there are upper and lower realms that can look different or look very similar to our preconceived notions of heaven, but I don't think there's like a grand orchestrator.
No, yeah, I think that the way that we experience it is in a way that makes sense to us, and it is just the way that it is the most accessible. Like that's how spirit or energy or whatever tries to relate to us, is through iconography that we understand, right? Yeah. So it's going to look different to me and you, even though it's basically the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, okay. That's about where I feel on it. So what happens when we die?
Okay. So I have had friends and people in my life who I love that I have not gotten permission to talk about. So I won't say who they are, but people very, very close to me that have had near-death experiences. And I will say that it's mostly what you've heard, which is like, I saw the light, I saw my mom, like that kind of stuff. I've also heard life review stuff. I've heard something you said earlier that you didn't believe in, which was like floating above the body. I've also heard from people that particularly my friends that have overdosed, that there is just a sense of peace and darkness.
That doesn't surprise me. I've had a couple of near-death experiences, and in case this one wasn't already prevalent and made aware to you guys, there's going to be a lot of trigger warnings in this one, whether it's just death as a concept, rotting, suicidal ideation, violent. There's going to be a lot. So if you need to take a back seat on this one, that is okay.
Just replay our fairy episode. Exactly.
That one was just fairies and cats. So think about that. But for the rest of you that continue forward, I have had a couple of brushes with death because I had a pretty hard childhood, and that manifested into a lot of depression and suicidal thoughts. And most of my experiences with death was weird. It was like hitting a wall. where it was just like, you have not gained entry yet. You don't get to come in here yet. I remember being out in a storm, like I could see a storm on the horizon on the beach, and I just kept walking because I did not care. And my brother eventually found me and like had to drag me back through the storm. And I tried to basically sit down in the middle of this storm, and it's very strange because the wind is so fast that the sand feels like it's cutting you.
Oh yeah, like we had a house on Lake Michigan, and I've been close enough to the storm that my hair stood on end.
Yep.
The lightning.
And basically just was like, I want to sit down. I don't want to go further. And he just wouldn't let me. He basically just dragged me all the way back to where we were staying on the beach. I got a yelling at from both him and my grandmother. I just kind of sat in my bed and just watched the world. It's, coming to terms with your own mortality is a very weird feeling. Do you remember the first time you realized you were going to die?
No, I remember being like 6 years old and wondering if I really existed. But in terms of coming to terms with mortality, right? Mm-hmm. It's always been very peaceful to me because I've been in situations where I've had guns pulled on me, where I've been in the passenger seat of a car that was probably gonna have inches before it was gonna wreck. I've had alcohol poisoning. Yeah. So for me, it's been just very peaceful. It's been like, okay, this is it. And I made peace with death a long time ago. I don't know how I did it. But I'm not afraid of it. To a point that's almost probably a little reckless. But I do feel like, because, and in part because I do have this faith, I think it doesn't bother me. Yeah. And I think that whenever I get close enough to death where it's like it should be this, it used to be a terrifying thing, you know? But there have been a lot of moments where I've been so close, like with guns and stuff, where it's like, it's just okay. If this is what happens, this is what happens.
That, I would agree with that. That's been most of my experience, where it doesn't feel like all-consuming. Yeah. It's not scary. It's just, all right, I'm fine with this. Yeah. I could go like that.
What else are you gonna fucking do?
Basically, yeah, because there's nothing. Yeah. You have two choices when faced with the struggle of mortality, which is flail about or accept it. Yeah. And I guess more specifically, what do you think happens to your body when you die? Really try to picture it.
Oh, God. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anywhere near as much as you do about this. I'm guessing some sort of weird decomposition sets in pretty quickly is what I've heard.
Yeah, in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, really, really quickly. I would like to have a Viking funeral. It's probably pretty illegal, so cremation is fine. We've all talked about, my family and I have talked about going up on the hill on Lake Michigan. Yeah,
good for you guys.
Together, yeah. So I'm just, get rid of me. I don't want to fucking rot in the ground. Don't do that to me. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I know you're about to tell me what's going to happen to my body, so can't wait for that.
Not in too much detail, admittedly. So I have a pretty unique perspective on today's topic. I work with Hades, who is the Greek Lord of the Dead and God of the Underworld. I was actually going to study mortuary science in school if I didn't make it into my art program. I have always had a fascination with death. I am considering becoming a death doula at the time of this recording.
You should.
Yeah, everybody tells me I should. In general, it's something that has always fascinated me, which is strange because in a lot of parts of my life, I wasn't really allowed to experience it. I was not allowed to go to any funerals, even for family members. When my grandfather died, my parents went to Oklahoma and I stayed in the house and my grandmother watched us. I think the opinion at the time was they just didn't want to deal with us. Mm-hmm. They did not want to manage us, on such somber occasions. And so unfortunately the very first funeral I ever went to was our coworker passing in December.
Yeah, that was recent. It's for me. It's been literally the exact opposite because my family is Irish American on my mom's side. Yeah, she's 96% Irish according to 23andMe, which is almost fucking impossible for people that have lived in this country for so long. And it's because they settled in Chicago, and it's a very homogenous type of a place. But
the branch is not it's more of a branch than a tree. Huh?
Yeah. But we call them going away parties, right? So the Irish tradition is the wake and the alcohol and the party, and I've been to a shit ton of them. And also I was in recovery for years, and they would always say, like, make sure that when you get sober that you buy yourself a nice suit, because you're going to be going to a lot of funerals. And that was definitely the case. It was the case before I got sober. It was the case after I got sober. So
that's a very chilling statement.
And that's also kind of like the gallows Irish humor that I have. Like, my mom and I talk about our funerals all the time, and like people are like, would you please stop doing that? And we're like,
see, that frustrates the hell out of me, because I love talking about death, and people are so uncomfortable with it. Yeah, I mean,
it's the one thing that we're all going to face, and it is terrifying to some people, because I think, I don't know, I'm going to stop on that one.
That's
Continue.
okay.
Yeah,
because we're going to talk about it. But in general, you're probably imagining yourself slipping out of this world, maybe a last sigh or a dramatic falling of the hand, surrounded by family and friends, or maybe just blissfully unaware and you die in your sleep. But you're not going to be there to see it. You're not going to have like a TV camera. There's not multiple angles, right? You may float up out of your body on the way to wherever the hell, but it's your mind's best idea of what will happen. Your mind is not designed to understand its own demise. Death and the cessation of your brain activity is the one thing our minds cannot grasp. It eludes us, it frightens us, and chases people. I have, a somewhat unique perspective on death. I just like weird and creepy shit. I don't know what to tell you. And
that bodes well for our podcast.
And, there's a reason that people say funerals are for the living and not the dead. And today, we will do our best to cover all things death. And I want to give a special shout out to Caitlin Dowdy and the Order of the Good Death for being a huge resource when it comes to this. If you are at all interested in death positivity, in death advocacy, or do you just want to ask like more specific questions than what we can talk about here, I would go over to their website. They have amazing resources there.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, and thanks to them. Also, I wanted to point out that our script is 10 pages, and we're scratching the surface of death. So we are probably going to be revisiting this topic over and over and over again in different facets of a diamond.
Oh, yeah. You'll be hearing from me again, folks. Don't worry.
So, but I am really excited for tonight.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Do you ever think about who the very first human to die was?
I'm thinking about it now.
Well, did the others care? Did they just leave them where they were? Or did they spend time with them? Did they even know what was happening?
Yeah. Well, I guess I can't answer that, but I would assume that back then our brains were small enough that they weren't really... they couldn't really comprehend death in the way that we think about it, right? Mm-hmm. They're looking at it as something probably, I'm guessing it was pretty terrifying to them to see somebody animated at one point and then slipping into something. Yeah. Yep. And so, I would assume that their small brains were kind of freaked out by that. That would be my guess.
Probably. Well, and the other fascinating thing about it is that man's first experience with death was probably murder. Because
of Cain and Abel in the Bible.
Well, all right, hold on. Let's hold our horses there.
I had to. It was too fucking easy. Low-hanging fruit.
I meant more in the sense of, like, you are more likely, especially at a point where we haven't really developed, like, solid structures. We're still hunting for all of our food, right? You're more likely to get got than be gotted, if you will. Mm-hmm. But archaeologists have been asking that question for a while, and the race to the bottom continues to this day. Most people cite Kafsa as the oldest ever found. So humankind likely originated in sub-Saharan Africa and eventually spread out into Europe and Asia, and a stop along the way was in Kafsa, Israel. And it is considered the world's oldest intentional burial. Considered the Middle Paleolithic, 15 individuals, anatomically human, were buried inside the Kafsa cave, along with 71 pieces of red ochre, shells, and ochre-stained bones. even 100,000 years ago, we found it necessary to care for and bury our dead. When few other animals considered their dead, we invented rituals. Like the fact that one of the very first things that we thought to do, even if this is technically a mass grave, we could find like ochre stains on their bones, basically like someone had painted them before they died.
That's beautiful. That actually gives me a lot of hope for humanity, to be honest with you.
Yeah, most of the very, very early burials that we find, they are very well cared for. There's a lot of grave goods, which are basically just items given to the deceased, either permanently or as offerings for, however long the funerary rites take place. They usually have things like antlers or other kinds of bones, precious objects, and they're usually just laid in place. There's a tomb that was found, I think in Kafsa, that was of a child, so like a little boy that was just laid down in place and then surrounded by antlers. So beautiful. That is, in a weird way, it's very sweet and it's very touching. And again, we're going to talk about why people are so uncomfortable with death in a minute, but you would just never know this if you never asked these questions, and know that our one of our basest instincts is to send people well on their way. The oldest cremation was 9,500 years ago in Africa, and one of the first necropoli was likely in either somewhere in Sumer, Mesopotamia, or Saqqara in Egypt. That one gets fought about a lot. As time marched on and we formed societies and civilizations, we also formed realms of the dead. The first of which may have been the Mesopotamian Irkalla, the inescapable land of the dead ruled by Eresh Kigal, goddess of death. The dead would be stripped of their possessions and eat dust for all eternity.
Yeah, I don't want that. I don't want to do that.
Yippee. Yeah, and it's, in a weird way, I like the equality of it.
Yeah.
Regardless of king or slave. Yep, you're eating dirt forever. And that scary lady watches you do it.
Yeah. I mean, there are worse things, I suppose, than eating dirt. We've all done it. I mean, I have.
Yeah, I mean, well, who hasn't had a nibble of dirt once in their life? I used to eat leaves as a kid.
Oh.
My brothers and I think as punishments for, if we lost something, would have to, bite a leaf off the tree.
That's really cute. I once ate a bouillon cube because I would not believe my mom that it wasn't candy.
I used to drink vanilla.
This is going really off the rails.
Yeah, a little bit.
So continue.
Egypt, of course, is the main event of death.
Yay!
It is famously careful and dedicated practice of mummification is one of the first things taught to children about ancient history and death. We don't have time to break down every inch of funerary Egyptian practice, but we will one day. But their desire for preservation is most interesting. Death was a journey to the Egyptians, one that needed to be survived and carefully guided through. Mummification ensured the most important organs, the liver, intestines, stomach, and lungs, each with an animal head representing the god who protected those organs, would be set aside. The heart would be left inside the body, and the brain would be taken out. The heart was the most important organ to the Egyptians, the seat of identity and knowledge. The heart would be left inside the chest to be weighed against the feather of Mat, sometimes translated as truth or knowledge, sometimes order. Mat is a goddess of all three things. Yes. By Anubis, god of funerals and the protector of the dead.
An all-around badass motherfucker.
We love Anubis in this house, folks. Now, to be fair, there's a lot of different jobs when it comes to death. Just because someone is the god of the dead does not make them the god of funerary practices, the underworld. There's a lot of splitting hairs here, especially for the Egyptians. If you ever wondered what would happen if your heart was not balanced by the feather of Mat, it would be eaten by the crocodile goddess Ammit. And you stopped existing.
Yeah, that actually did worry me a lot as a child. Probably more so than
The
it should have.
crocodile lady's gonna eat me and I'm not gonna exist anymore.
Yeah, that was a real fear for 5-year-old Sarah.
Listen, there are a lot of things that kid brain thinks are gonna be really important.
Oh, yeah.
Like quicksand.
Yes, and it is shockingly not important at all.
Nope, never run into that shit in my whole life. Not even once.
Never even met a person that has.
Nope. I just don't think it happens that often. But damn, when you were a kid, you were fucking ready. The brain was a useless organ pulled out through the nose with a hook, and the cavity would be filled in with resin or cloth.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to make a joke about my brain tumor and the fact that they went in through the nose, and certainly I'm not going to make any mention of the fact that seems very weirdly connected, and I don't like it. So we can move on.
Yeah, fair enough. You don't want to know how they did it. Anyway, how quickly we went from simple inhumation, which is the proper term for burial, to pyramids and funerary gifts is no accident. Death is the final frontier, the last great adventure. The human fear of death is only predated by the fear of the unknown. Priestesses and shamans rose to guide the living through loss and prepare the body for both decay and departure. However, within life, we find disparity, and no greater is that felt in class. For the first time, wealth determined the quality of your death. The wealthy of Egypt would have all manner of charms placed between layers of wrappings, decorated multi-room tombs, multiple casket sets and death masks, furniture, weapons, chariots, even mummified pets or their wives would be buried and sealed inside the great tomb. Usually not alive. They would usually kill them first.
Oh, that's kind.
Well, you gotta mummify them.
No, I
Not hard to do that if they struggle.
I understand. I just think it's kind
This
of
is not the mummy, okay? We are not wasting good mummification wrappings on a guy we hate and then tossing him in a fucking jar with a bunch of bugs. I have a lot of feelings about The Mummy. Good movie. Very good movie.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my god, we gotta do that, man. It's a good one.
Okay.
It is the bisexual fantasy. There is a person in there for everyone.
Okay, I dig that.
The poor would be minimally wrapped, placed in a single casket, or simply buried in the sand to let it naturally mummify the body, and then their personal items would be left with them. That was it. So this is where we start to see religion accommodate for different wealth, like different price gouges, basically. And
A tradition that is carried on by the funeral practices of today in the United States.
Indeed. We'll get there. In ancient China, jade tools, bones, pottery, and especially bronze would be left in the tombs of the deceased, and famously, even stone soldiers to guard one of their emperors in death. Zhou was extremely hierarchical, in their funerary practices involving bronze ritual vessels called gui. The emperor was entitled to 9, the feudal lords 7, ministers 5, and warriors 3. The terracotta warriors are an archaeological triumph and a fascinating example of death classism. Guarding the eastern part of the necropolis, they were found in 1974 by farmers. They guard the emperor, Huangdi, and the mausoleum of the Yellow Emperor in which he lays. 121 of the people who built that mausoleum were all interred in a mass grave along with the warriors.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's very strange how the interpretation of mass graves has really changed throughout time. Nowadays, we really see like potter's fields as just disgusting, even though a lot of Europe basically is one.
Yes.
Like, I think especially in Germany.
I was going to say, I wonder if this has something to do with World War II.
Somewhat. So this problem actually, like the idea of running out of space, crept up on us way faster than that.
Okay.
Urbanization is really what did it there.
I do know we're going to be doing a episode on Jim Morrison, or already have, depending on which will be released first. And I know that in that cemetery, and there are other cemeteries too, I think other places in the world, where you have to rent the cemetery space, and that you have it for say 15 years.
That is basically how it works. Yep, that's how it works in Germany. Straight up, you have that spot for, I think it could be anywhere from 5 to 15 years.
Probably how much you're paying. It's like public storage.
Yeah, pretty much. That's your place to grieve, to do whatever, and then afterwards you're all thrown into a mass grave. And different cultures feel differently about that. Yeah. In some ways, I can see it being positive because you're not alone. Mm-hmm. You're with your people. You're with, people that you may not have known, but you would have grown up with. You have the same culture, same whatever. The other part of me is like you've destroyed their identities, right? They just become one with all of these other bodies.
And I wonder if that too is part of the rugged individualism of our culture that tells us that we need to be individual and
even when
solitary.
We're not going to be there to experience it.
Yeah, it's almost like precious in a way. You know?
Yeah. Okay. No, I couldn't see that, and I agree with it entirely. The Greeks, of course, had their own way of handling the dead. Handled in 2 stages, the funeral itself, kaideia, which literally means to care for, was split into prothesis, the cleaning, mourning of the dead, and ekphora, the transport to the burial site. Women handled almost all of these processes, washing the body, cleaning wounds. Like, they really took special care of warriors. If they were slain in battle, they would stitch it up. Singing dirges, like sometimes it would be like impromptu, usually led by the family, and then professional mourners would go in with like rehearsed lamentations. It's very, very specific. And then men would do the final step, which is interring the body into its final resting place. Finally, the living family would host a banquet and then cleanse themselves of death. Archaic Greece favored cremation, while Hellenistic Greece preferred inhumation, and then they would flip back and forth a little bit in between. What they all agreed on was that the body was unclean and polluted that which it was near. People were warned of giving birth or dying in or near temples. Even in myth, the gods did not stay with the dying to the end, for they thought it would also pollute them. As Artemis states to Hippolytus, only, a select few deities can actually stay with and interact with mortals. So, really, really fast synopsis on that. Basically, Hippolytus was a friend and devotee to Artemis, so much so that he was not interested in romantic love at all. Aphrodite took exception to that. And made his stepmother fall in love with him. Her name was Phaedra. She was the second wife of the hero Theseus. He was clearly not into that shit, and instead of being a normal person about it, she killed herself and then wrote a note basically saying that Hippolytus had violated her, so that when their father would find it, he would also kill him and send him to her.
I'd like to point out that I believe the statistic nowadays is, I think, 1 to 2% of all accusations made against sexual abusers are false. 1 to 2%.
I feel that is also helpful to say right now.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, not every story of antiquity is meant to be repeated. But when Hippolytus lay dying, basically because I believe Theseus stabs him in retribution, Artemis is only with him to a point. Mm. She does leave before, death pollutes her or whatever else. Someone that was incredibly important and devoted to her. Somebody that she, I think, immortalized later either in a constellation that I cannot think of right now or just like in this story in of itself. So very, very interesting there. You don't see that very often. The deities who can interact with mortals gives us the term psychopomp, with figures like Hermes, Thanatos, and Charon, or Charon, depends on how you want to say that. Guides of the dead, those who help others cross over, literally in the sense of Charon and the river Styx. Mm-hmm. And that is actually a profession that some witches do. That is their whole ass job.
I've taken classes in psychopomp and have done it. And it's an honor and very, very, very beautiful, and gives me a lot of love.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
I do it when I do it for free. It's one of the only things where I don't ask for an energy exchange per se. I just do it because it's kind of paying back the classes that I took, basically.
Yeah, I totally get that, and I think that would be work that I would enjoy.
Yeah.
It's just emotionally, it's a lot.
Yeah.
The only work that I give out entirely for free is baneful work in the case of assault and abuse.
Yeah.
Because I could not charge for that. I take too much pleasure in doing it.
Everyone's got their thing.
Exactly. Even when nature does the work for us, we spend countless years digging our dead free for the history they may hold, not unlike the Pompeii bodies found preserved in ash and volcanic rock, frozen in time and frozen in horror. Remnants of ancestors haunting to look at, and yet Pompeii and Herculaneum have fascinated us for thousands of years. I actually looked at the photos of the bodies again, including in the I believe there are 13 bodies that were all frozen together. And it's called, I think it's the Garden of the, I think it means criminals or something like that. But it is so much stranger to look at what is essentially like the encased or like fossilized body of someone who was alive thousands of years ago and experienced a world-ending event, and you didn't read about it. It's right there.
Yeah.
There were even like animals and dogs that were buried in place. And it's really sad in a strange way because the body is there, it feels like it happened more recently.
Yeah. I gotta say though, natural disaster, not my least favorite way to go.
Yeah.
As long as it's quick.
Honestly, what would be your worst way to die? Because I certainly can think of one.
I buried alive. I was not claustrophobic until I had my brain tumor, and then the MRIs really did me in.
Yeah.
So yeah. Being buried alive. What about you?
Eaten.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I would like to
too.
not be eaten.
Yeah.
Especially because of how much of that process you are still alive for.
Okay, that's probably worse than being buried alive. So yes.
It's not a competition. I think
they can both suck.
Yeah, but I think that also says a lot about a person.
Yeah.
About the way they don't want to go.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I'd be okay with drowning. Some people
I would be okay with drowning.
Some
too.
people tell me drowning is a horrible way to go because it's really painful.
It is, but I love being in the water.
Me too.
And that was when we did our Vanity Fair Proust questionnaire.
Yo.
I talked about the way I wanted to go is actually drowning in Lake Michigan, and also the cold, like hypothermia. So
there's something romantic about drowning, I think. I think of Ophelia.
I think of Shelley.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's run through some various funeral practices, just a little bit of a best of, if you will, from around the world for education's sake. Death is not a monolith, and while cultures stuck to what their ancestors did most of the time, others moved away from tradition entirely. We have, of course, beginning with sky burial, or more accurately called jahator, is still, and I probably pronounced that incorrectly, is still practiced today in Tibet. The body is taken to a specific channel, a high tower or a mountain, cared for by skilled practitioners, not the family, and then left to be picked apart by vultures and other carrion birds. Jahator means giving alms to the birds and represents a final act of generosity and impermanence to Tibetan Buddhists. The tradition likely developed because of Tibet's high rocky environment, making burials difficult and cremation costly to sustain because it's cold as shit. This rite is extremely sacred and cannot be photographed or recorded. A lot of people make fun of sky burials, I think, because of the shock of it. That is not exclusive to them, even a little bit. Indo-European cultures practice sky burial. It's very likely that some native populations here in the Americas probably practiced it. There's just a lot of different things that can make a culture conclude that. Mm-hmm. Thami Dihana, the Malagasy, so those are the people from Madagascar, Ritual of honoring both the recently deceased and ancestors gone by releasing them from their tombs and rewrapping their funeral shrouds, dressing them again with new clothes, and parading them around to music and dancing. This is a time of joy and a pride in showing off one's ancestors. Fami Dihana does not happen at every death, more every 5 to 7 years, when groups of family work hard to prepare their dead and provide food and libations to guests. It is an expensive ritual that ensures that no one is forgotten.
That's lovely.
Weirdly, I think that's kind of nice. I wonder how they dress the ones that don't really have, skin or connective tissue anymore.
Yeah, I'm actually not going that deep into that. I'm just thinking that it's nice that they want everyone to be included.
I think that everyone being included is also nice.
Do I sound like a Care Bear? Because I kind of am.
Well, because here's the thing, right? It's... I think it's okay to acknowledge something for what you like about it, even if it's, dying. The Tower of Silence, or Dakma, is the Zoroastrian death rite that is also very similar to sky burial. A circular structure raised to lift the dead towards the sky and away from the soil of the earth. They would be picked apart by vultures and birds until clean, and then the bones would be placed in a pit for further processing into dust. The elements of the earth, fire, water, etc. should not be polluted by death, and instead offer the dead up to the sky as the best way to transition. Men would be placed on the outer ring, women in the middle, and children nearest to the center. They're actually little sized, almost like cubes, to put the person in.
That's neat.
On a big disc like this.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's flat, that's just what it is. And other times the pit is there and they just whoop right in.
Wow, okay.
It's very strange to look at when your culture does nothing of the sort.
Yeah.
But it's also very interesting in its own way. And sometimes they wouldn't toss them into the pit. They would just leave them to basically bleach in the sun and process in place. Mm-hmm. I think it would be more like if they just needed to move you or something along those lines. Japanese preparation is incredibly meticulous. A 20-step ritual guided by both family, priests of Shinto and Buddhist faiths, and mourners. 9 out of 10 of all funerals in Japan are both Shinto and Buddhist. There is, they can't really tell the difference where one starts and where one ends anymore because of how long they've been intertwined in the area. And the 20 steps are as follows. Matsugo no Mizu, the washing of the lips. A close relative wets the lips of the deceased, giving the body its last taste of water. This is to be performed as close to the time of death as is possible. The yukan, the washing of the corpse. Several family members may be involved in this practical and ceremonial washing. Kyu hokuku, the announcement of the death. The family announces the death to the spirit world through prayer and memorialization at the family shrine. Makura Naoshi no gi. The phrase means pillow decorations, and the ritual involves placing the deceased in such a way that the head is propped up on a pillow facing north. Offerings of food are to be made to the gods at this time. A sword or knife is placed by the side of the deceased. Nokan no gi, the placement of the dead body of the deceased in a coffin. Kyuzen niku, or daily food offerings to the deceased. These food offerings are to be made twice a day until the body is given its final resting place. Traditionally, the favorite meals of the deceased are prepared. Ubusuna jinja ni kyu hokukoka. Hope I got that one right. The announcement of the return of the spirit to the local shrine. Bosho batsujo no gi. The earth purification ceremony. The priests from the local shrine will purify the ground to be used for the gravesite with water and prayer. Kesai. When the priest purifies himself in preparation for the funeral. This normally occurs through ceremonial washing and prayer. Suya sai. This is considered the wake. Mourners gather to express condolences to the family and present their offerings to the gods, the shrine, and sometimes the family. Senrei sai, which means the transfer of the spirit. The priest transfers the deceased spirit from the body into a wooden tablet. The tablet is held over the body of the deceased while the priest offers ceremonial prayers. Setai, which is a word for refreshment. The food that has been prepared at a different location to prevent the contamination of death is served to the mourners. This food may be anything from a light snack to a substantial meal. Shinsosai, the funeral service. The room where the funeral will be held is purified. Prayers and offerings are made to the gods, and eulogies honoring the deceased are given by the priests. Kokobetsu Shiki, the farewell ceremony. Mourners leave the funeral by walking, single file, past the deceased. The mourner is to say final goodbyes to the deceased and offer prayers and word of condolences to the family. Hakyu Sai no Gi is the departure of the coffin. The coffin is prepared for travel to the gravesite. A sword is placed on the coffin and banners are placed around it so that the deceased becomes aware that it is time to move on. Soretsu is the funeral procession that transports the coffin to the cemetery or crematorium. Hakyugo Batsujo Nogi. The home where the funeral ceremony has taken place is purified. In addition, the funeral altar is removed and a new altar is set up inside the house. Maisosai is the offering of burial rites. Family and close friends will gather at either the gravesite or crematorium with the body. Offerings are made on behalf of the deceased and are placed within the coffin. Prayers are led by the priests. Kotsuage means the picking up of the bones. Bones are removed from the crematorium ash and placed in a vase. Kikasai means coming home. Ashes that are not buried are brought to the home and placed in the family shrine. The bereaved offers thanks to the people who have participated in the funeral. Prayers and offerings are given on behalf of the deceased. The family of the deceased will then be in a period of mourning for 49 days. Once a week, they visit the grave to place fresh flowers and to burn incense. On the 3rd, 7th, and 49th days, they will have a short memorial service at the site led by a Shinto priest. During these 49 days, the family cannot participate in any form of celebration or entertainment.
So this is why it took 6 hours and 10 pages to write.
Correct. You know what? Let's take a break real quick.
Sounds good.
You mind if I smoke?
Now hear this. Now hear this. This is our ad break. We are coming to you live from Sticks and Stones, our home away from home, the center of all of your metaphysical needs. We have literature, crystals, and all manner of items to intrigue and excite you. Come by anytime, receive a reading from us if you're here on our days, or just come say hi. Now hear this. Now hear this. Back to your regularly scheduled program.
Smoke?
I always smoke at the theater. Somehow it enhances the performance.
Okay, Jesus. Like, we're not already a hell of a way into this. You like Norse burials, don't you?
I mean, who doesn't, right?
The Viking, placing the dead on the ship, setting them adrift, and then firing a flaming arrow into the ship to burn it, and burning is one.
That's what I would prefer to have done to me, yes, even though I'm not even remotely from that part of the world.
Well, don't feel bad, because they didn't do that shit. Well, not entirely, anyway. So here's the thing. Show ships... So basically, they're not, fully decked out, right? Because it's a lot of time, money, and effort that you're throwing away there. With the dead and their grave goods inside would be set inside of a moat or, a dugout trench. And then it would be buried whole. They would just bury the entire ship into the land. This was also not a common occurrence. Most people were either buried or cremated, or buried at sea, with popularity with one or the other varying over time. Burials at sea are kind of their own thing. Many, many cultures engage in them. Hell, even, aquatic institutions like the Navy have their own, set standards for that. Yeah, cruise ships are fucking morgues, by the way.
Oh, we need to talk about cruises. There's a lot to talk about. on cruises.
We'll get there, folks. In Korea, they actually have what are called, like in English anyway, death beads, where they turn ashes into these really pretty beads that are kept inside the family home. I think there's something similar that a company is doing now where they like turn you into like a smooth white rock that you can like make designs out of, whatever. There are also, you know, some interesting death rituals, ones that are not really practiced anymore. One that I can think of is called sati. So that is a Hindu death ritual in which the wife of the deceased man would be thrown into the pyre with him during cremation. Whether that was by choice, by coercion, by force, either way this would happen. A practice that is now illegal and has been illegal since, I think, either 1829 or 1832 with the arrival of the British...
Colonialization.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it did one good thing.
Yeah, that's... I can't say that one's super positive. So it is a very early Hindu belief. We're not even like 100% sure if it was actually written down. It just seems like it's very, very old. It came from somewhere. And where most people think it was is that Sati herself was actually a goddess, and she was one of the wives of Shiva. Her name itself actually means chaste woman or good wife, depending on translation. And she threw herself onto Shiva's funeral pyre as a final act of devotion. That's what it's kind of supposed to be. It's a simultaneous, like, I love my husband so much I'll die with him, but also, and this is very upsetting to say, what is your purpose at this point?
Yeah.
Without your husband as a woman, and you maybe don't have children, I assume, in this setup, what is your value past this point?
You're sounding like a lot of far-right influencers right now.
And that's the problem, and that's why this shit was made illegal, because it is barbaric, and not because it is practiced by Hindu people, but because it is not okay to do that to anybody. But Antyeshi is the name for the proper Hindu funeral. Usually involving cremation and then throwing the ashes into the holy rivers, such as the Ganges. On top of all of this, there is something called like a cold sati, where the widow is just shunned by everyone she knows instead.
Wow.
That is a practice that has probably continued into the present day, but it's not a popular one.
That's gotta be so hard on top of already grieving your husband.
I could not imagine doing that to somebody.
No.
Telling them that the entirety of their worth was wrapped up in someone who's now dead. But again, ups and downs, people. Ups and downs. Muslim faith dictates a very fast burial process where the body, after being washed and prayed over, is immediately interred facing Mecca and covered in a white shroud with the neck and feet tied with a rope. Cremation is forbidden in Islam as the body must be intact. Funerals are quiet, short affairs led by an imam with men in the front and women in the back. Mourning and like visibly being upset is allowed, but you can't make too much noise. It's very simple and to the point. I think Jewish funerals are very similar. I don't think they're on the same timeline at all.
No, wait, no. I've been to a Jewish funeral.
Oh.
Yeah, one thing that I really liked that they did was that they buried, they took the dirt and buried, like, people, you could throw dirt onto the...
Oh, that's nice.
You could throw dirt onto a coffin, and then there's the whole sitting Shiva kind of a thing, so... Yeah, it was actually funny because not that funerals are funny, but I went to this funeral. It was a coworker's son who passed, who was an adult son, but I went to just show support, and I got there, and I was like, where's the alcohol? And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, it's a funeral, where's the alcohol? She's like, we don't do that. We have food. You want food? I was like, no, I'm Irish, dude. Where's the whiskey? Like,
this is my chance to day drink, bitch. Gimme.
Very confusing to me.
And see, I kind of get that. I do. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can approach the subject. And, again, almost none of this has to do with the person themselves, beyond making sure that they make it over there well. So whether we like it or not, we are equal parts drawn to and repulsed by death, especially here in the West. We love war, we love drama, but when it comes to the aftermath, we like the story more than the actual remnants. Our attitudes around death here in the United States is comparatively a little weird and empty.
I need you, and we can make a weekend of this sometime when it's going to rain, but you need to watch 6 Feet Under.
I need to do this.
You're going to love it. It's a whole, it's a couple of seasons meditation on funerals in the West, and you are Claire. That's basically one of the main characters. You are so Claire.
You say that to me a lot.
Yeah, you even have red hair, so it's a thing. Okay, continue.
All right. Once funerals made it past antiquity, they contended with new problems. Urbanization had its perks and considerable downsides. In the Middle Ages, the plague completely restructured our perspective on grief and death. There were simply too many people to perform complex rituals for, not to mention the stigma of working with the infected. So they simplified. The body was taken from the hands of the family and into the church, where death was a quick affair. The body was cleaned, a coffin selected, a service would be held, and they would be buried afterward. After the Age of Enlightenment, however, a different trading of hands occurred, from religion into the hands of science. The body was no longer the seat of the soul, but something to be studied and understood, even conquered. Bodies for study, however, were in short supply. Thus, doctors and grave robbers got chummy. Many early doctors practiced surgery and learned where the organs were by cutting up the recently dead, or at least the ones that were too poor to afford coffin cages and other protection measures against grave robbing. Bodies would be preserved with a mix of arsenic and alcohol, which would quickly be replaced with the invention of formaldehyde by German chemist August Wilhelm von Hofmann and Russian Alexander Butlerov in 1859.
In case you're wondering, you can definitely get high off formaldehyde.
Cool.
Don't do it, folks.
It does smell awful, I gotta say. Yeah. I really enjoyed dissection when I was a kid. It was fun. It just, God, those frogs stank to high heaven.
The worst was the fetal pig.
The pig was fun.
It smelled, though.
I accidentally castrated mine, and I got points off for it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. We had a naming contest for ours, and mine was Hammocken Skywalker.
Hammocken Skywalker goes fucking hard, dude.
I did win the naming contest.
There you go! Oh my God, that reminds me, we used to have something at the county fair that was called pig racing.
I know what that is, yeah.
And we would name them, after celebrities and stuff. Oh God, I think there was Justin Bieber. I think, there was a really good Selena Gomez pun, and I do not remember what it is. John Hamm?
Oh my God, that's the best one.
John Hamm, I know what you did. Anyway,
Did he do something?
Oh, yeah, dude. Look up his hazing incident.
Okay.
Seriously, it's not good.
Okay.
Thus began the infancy of chemical embalming. However, Europe did not immediately flock to embalming because they had little use for it. Us over here in the US of A, however, were just getting started. The Civil War began just 2 years after the invention of formaldehyde, and they had a problem. The first war America fought against itself, men from Boston fighting against men from the Carolinas could be as far in Georgia. People were dying in droves far away from home, and they were causing issues with the railroad companies that would transport them. Bodies rotting in coach was not a great look for them, and they needed a solution. In steps the first embalmers, like ambulance chasers, following armies and awaiting battles to show off their tricks, teaching others who would pay them along the way. Suddenly, families could be given time back, and burial was no longer a pressing immediate concern. This was famously even used on the President of the United States, President Lincoln, after his assassination. He was embalmed and carted around the U.S. by train, with thousands of mourners able to pay their respects to their fallen leader.
Can I interject? I also find it fascinating that during the Civil War, ghost stories really took off.
Yep.
Because they were this kind of fantasy that these people that you didn't know if they were dead or not, that they would be returning, right? And so and then you got to think that the veil must have been real thin when that much bloodshed was going on. So ghost stories, really I wouldn't have my ghost story night probably without the Civil War.
The Civil War, like the sheer amount of ghost stories generated from that one conflict is crazy. I think the only other one that beats it is probably World War II.
Yeah.
Spirits don't like wars.
Yeah. We talked about no Nazi ghosts, didn't we?
I don't think we did. What do you mean Nazi ghosts?
Somebody, I don't remember where I heard this from, and I really wish that I did. But somebody was saying that there are not a lot of Nazi ghosts for some reason. There are people that died during World War II that are ghosts, definitely. Yeah. But the Nazis themselves, I guess, I don't know.
How strange.
Maybe they're all in fucking Argentina.
Maybe. But that is interesting because normally ghosts are left behind if you do something wrong or if you do something that you still struggle with a great deal.
Maybe they opened up a whole new fucking pit for those people. I don't know.
Maybe, man. Maybe. They were like, all right, we're making a new dead realm. Nazis only.
Exactly.
Embalming, however, isn't cement. It doesn't last forever without frequent reinjection and chemical baths. A body can still fall into disrepair. Famously, the body of Lenin still lies in state thanks to frequent embalming, but the process of restoring him becomes more and more arduous with each refresh. All of this comes at a significant cost. In 2016, the Russian government allocated 13 million rubles, which is approximately $200,000, for the mausoleum's upkeep. This is in addition to the countless amounts of money already given to the dedicated scientists tasked with Lenin's perpetual preservation. And he looks so weird.
Oh, yeah, no, see.
He looks so weird.
Yeah, it's not a thing that I like. No.
I mean, he was... Oh, God, I think he was interred... When, like, 1923-ish?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, so this man has been dead for 100+ years. And he doesn't look good, man. I would not be wasting that much money on that.
Yeah.
Please don't kill me, Russian government. People spoke openly about death. There was no ambiguity of wishes. Women would make their own shrouds and wear them in the coffin. The site was chosen, the coffin was chosen, and then the Victorians came along. Spurred by Queen Victoria's legendary 10-year mourning period, a newfound interest in death, the occult, and the macabre rose. Seances, secret societies, and grave robbing all in the same city. Mourning jewelry was popularized, locks of hair inside of keepsakes, or a particular favorite of mine, lover's eyes, sometimes belonging to the living or dead. A small painting of just the eye was closed inside a necklace or other jewelry, a way to keep identities secret and memories fresh.
Oh.
Yeah, I actually have a lover's eye necklace.
That's lovely.
Yeah. The fear of death was then of being buried alive.
No, that's where I don't like this.
And
Fuck
many
this in general.
And many coffins had fail-safes like bells that could be rung from the inside.
That I did know. Please don't put me in a coffin, but if you fucking do, give me a bell.
The little bell, I think, does help. If it makes you feel better, I think, like, single digits amount of people have ever been buried alive, and it was usually on purpose.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Nobody, I think, at least with the, with, like, better death verification tests, which is a fascinating process, by the way. I did not write it down here, but there are multiple steps that hospitals have to do before they proclaim you dead, just in case, like, you're in a coma or you just, like, stop breathing for some, like, you know, in case of whatever. I think I remember reading about this when I was younger. They would literally, one of the tests is to put a car key on your finger as hard as they can without, like, breaking skin to see if you'll react to it. Which feels so unscientific for some reason.
It sounds very unscientific.
But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, maybe make sure I'm dead. That sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
I will say, I do have a DNR.
Yeah, we are going to talk about that a little bit later, but I am a big advocate for DNRs, advanced directives,
one of those.
Take control of your death. That is my opinion. Anyway, There were 2 distinct periods of mourning for the Victorians, though things do vary. First mourning, or full mourning, and second mourning, or half mourning.
Is that like second breakfast?
You know, it's so kind of, a little bit. Rules of fashion during these periods were very specific and counted down to the month. The durations of these periods would depend on proximity to the deceased, though it was expected to take a long time. Wives of departed husbands were expected to mourn for 2 years, the first year being full mourning, the second, I believe, being half mourning, wearing no color or jewelry, or attending any events. Husbands of the deceased wives were expected to mourn for a year and could re-enter society after about 3 months.
Why does that not surprise me at all?
Second mourning was usually shorter and less intense, and jewelry and touches of white could be added back in as a treat.
Treat yourself.
So it feels mean. It does. I also want to raise you. There's a very famous painting, and I've forgotten the name of it, unfortunately, where it has a girl who is in full mourning attire on a train, and there is a man behind her that's like trying to get her attention in the creepy way that they like to do. Mourning was also protection for women, so that you could not be immediately shipped off to another man.
Okay, I get that. Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. It's, something that is designed for oppression may in some ways also give a little bit of reprieve. I don't think there's an obvious power imbalance here, but I think there is something to be said for, like, that is the period of time where we leave them the hell alone.
Yeah.
Especially with how demanding society could be for the rich, the amount of backstabbing, whatever else. I think I would like a year or 2 off. People lived longer, and death became more and more sanitized, and thus the doctor perfected his trade and began to look for ways to prevent death for as long as possible, even to cure it if he could. Horror movies of the 20s and 30s played with this thought, and writers of the late 1800s, Gothic and Romantic periods did too. Uniting them is the story of Frankenstein.
Yes, one of my all-time favorite books.
A man made from parts of the dead, reanimated by godless science. We were more frightened of death now, something to be kept as far away as good health could keep it. And this idea of, like, vilifying science in this way is the reason that Frankenstein is considered the very first sci-fi book.
Mm. I read it in high school and in college, and so I must have read it 8 times back to back, just because I had to write so many papers on it.
Yep.
And I just would sob.
It's a good ass book, man.
It is so good.
I also think, like, it is a book that's very easy to identify with on purpose.
Yes, exactly.
On purpose,
Yeah.
because the man who I would give him names because I felt bad just calling him, like, the monster or the whatever else. I think when I was a kid I called him Walter.
Oh.
I think his name is actually supposed to be Adam, but whatever, man. In general, though, I just felt so bad for him, and you're supposed to, because he's basically Lucifer, but with science.
Yeah, he was abandoned by God and his father.
Exactly.
And it's just heartbreaking and heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
If you haven't read Frankenstein, go read it right the fuck
Just go
out.
fucking read it. There's no amount of yapping that either of us are gonna do that's going to, be anywhere close to the glory of this book. Speaking of books... Funeral homes were not always the dignified places that they'd like to claim to be. In Jessica Mitford's book, The American Way of Death, written in 1963, it calls out funeral homes and criticizes their expensive and abusive practices. Makeup, lavish decor, caskets, grave goods, and keepsakes for hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars. Describing embalming so graphically, her original publisher actually dropped her before this one. Her book was a #1 bestseller. She recommended the simplest possible funeral and cremation. Again, just do what you need to do with the body, burn it, you're done. Because it is what costs you the absolute least. Again, I am a huge advocate for taking death into your own hands. I don't think all funeral homes are greedy little evil people that want the least from you. A lot of them are greedy people that want the most from you.
If you are interested in that aspect of it, there is a documentary on HBO called The Mortician.
I watched it. I couldn't
get through it. I didn't make it through either. No.
It's fucked.
I was like, and we're done.
Yeah.
Got to like episode 2, and I was just like, nope, we're good, thanks.
It's like, oh god, wow, yeah. I need to look at some rainbows or wash my eyes out with Game of Thrones. That'll make me calm.
Quick, turn on the fairy episode.
Turn on the fairy episode is just gonna be the inside joke from now on. Oh goodness.
And actually, fairies are kind of upsetting. So yeah, we have no reprieve here at Oakum Spookum.
You're just getting railroaded by darkness and hatred because that is what you signed up for. And let me tell you something, folks. Funeral directors still hate this woman to this day. Dead ass. You will have usually older people that still talk about this book and Jessica Mitford like she is the fucking devil. 1963, again, is the year that this was published, and for an important reason, that was also the year that the Pope lifted the Catholic cremation ban. It is also the year that JFK was assassinated.
Fun fact about JFK, should I be saying this? I don't know.
All facts about JFK are fun.
My grandmother was buried in the same model coffin as him. That's how much my family loved JFK.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't pick any of that. None of it.
I'm sure he didn't, but it was just...
The story of JFK's death is insane.
Yeah, we're going to have to tackle that at some point.
The story does not end at him being shot. That is all you need to know.
Yeah.
Because it is wild and it is upsetting. But long story short, that's relevant to this episode. He actually had 2 coffins because he ruined the first one.
Yes.
By literally filling it with his own blood like a pool.
Yeah. I learned that during the when I listened to the JFK episodes of last podcast on the left.
Yep, those are good ones.
Very good.
But a lot of this, again, this book was number 1. It is very, very possible that Jackie Kennedy read this book, and it informed a lot of her opinions about the way that her husband should be laid in state.
Okay.
Our dead have been far from home for some time. We no longer keep them in our houses, buried under our beds as Indo-Europeans did, or out back in our family crypts or small churchyards. They are now taken away by coroners, evaluated by hospital staff, and then given to the funeral home to be dignified. A funeral is given, a last goodbye, and then the remains are buried on a plot of land, far from anyone else, owned by a church, a funeral home, or a government, and that's it. People became scared of talking about death as though speaking about it doomed you into it forever. Or it would be, until we come to the death positivity movement. In 1974, the first hospice center was opened in the U.S., inspired by the movement growing in the U.K. There was a desire to care for the terminally ill, a humanitarian effort to make passing more humane to the sick and less expensive to hospital staff. Not long after, the natural death movement began, and in 76, legislation allowed for the right to refuse medical intervention. As a result, living wills and advance directives were born, which gave trans people especially more rights to their own deaths and identities than ever before. Dia de los Muertos was a huge rallying point for this movement, and early celebrations in the U.S. stemmed from the Chicano movement, and a defiance to the white American idea of assimilation.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. There's, 70s got a lot of stuff done in terms of death advocacy, and I cannot stress to y'all enough how much of a right and an important right it is to be able to refuse medical intervention when dying.
Yes. Yeah, I had to face that when I was diagnosed with my brain tumor. They were like, okay, you need to do a living will, you need to do advanced directive, you need to do DNR, you need to do all that stuff. And I was like, unplug me the fuck, like, the second you can't. Like, I don't fear death. I don't want to be prolonged. And it was very empowering for me, because I was going under the knife with my brain, and I was like, this is some real shit that I have to face. I was, in my 30s, and it was interesting. So I'm very glad that I had that in place, though.
Which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who do not know what a DNR is, it is a do not resuscitate order. If you lose consciousness, your heart stops working, and you stop breathing, there are a lot of different things that they can attempt to do to keep you alive. They are invasive, and they are usually extremely painful. And for that reason, and others, people choose to refuse that service entirely and die naturally without intervention. The choice to use intervention or not is entirely up to the individual if they can make decisions about it at the time. I am somebody, actually, I wrote my first will when I was 8 years old.
Does not surprise me.
I notarized it myself. I made a little, like, the
seal?
yes, the little seal out of, like, yellow gold crayon and paper, and just stuck that bitch right on there. And I was going to send it to my Uncle Jonathan, who I knew was a lawyer, but I did not know that he was a CPS lawyer. And yeah, I guess, actually, I have scheduled a conversation, I think, with a lawyer to actually write my will pretty soon, because technically speaking, the one from when I was 8 years old is the only one that I have, although I doubt it's legally binding.
Probably not.
In the 80s, it became the death acceptance movement, and it was deeply intertwined with the AIDS crisis. Palliative care was introduced more frequently. Conversations began to change from expensive and unnecessary treatments to ensuring quality of life and caring for living family members. However, not all systems in place were interested in treating their patients fairly. Many hospitals, crematories, and funeral homes refused AIDS patients for fear of the disease or for the moral belief in deserving what happened to them as God's retribution. This led to die-ins, a protest in which people would lie still and be forced to be moved aside, forcing people to acknowledge the deaths of those affected. Community leaders began to care for the dead once more, and with this, likely the profession of the death doula emerged here, though the movement itself didn't really start properly until the 2000s. This is where we get figures like Miss Mary Jane. This is where we get people who just didn't have anywhere else to go and were cared for by the kindness of people around them if it was there for them.
If you had listened to our episode on marijuana, we talked about Miss Mary Jane, who, you want to...
Miss Mary Jane
synopsis?
was a lovely old lady who made pot brownies for AIDS patients and cancer patients so that they would not have to live the rest of their lives in pain. It's slowly dying. And also to make sure that they would actually eat.
Yes.
The wasting part of both of those diseases tends to be what really, really gets you. And this is one, I don't think there is a queer person alive who does not get lividly angry at the AIDS epidemic.
I saw the quilt.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
I have seen the quilt.
Yeah.
There is a photo I thought of, actually. It's a leather jacket, and it says, "When I die, just drop me in front of," I think it's the FDA or a different like governmental building. And there are so many pictures, like the gay men's choir, where they turn their backs, like, to show just the black of the missing members they had, and there were only 3 people left.
It's
an entire generation of queer adults is just gone. Because...
And people of color.
Yeah, people of color, especially black, gay, poor, and young, is the worst combination in the world, unfortunately. And I don't want to spend too much time on this just because it'll make me upset. But yeah, you respect your elders, because they very likely would not have been here if they were a little less lucky. Many books were written about death, famously On Death and Dying by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969, who coined the now outdated 5 stages of grief. The Denial of Death by Ernst Becker in 1973 was also a landmark, written a year before his death, described terror management theory, and he was interviewed by Psychology Today on his deathbed.
Wow.
TMT posits that while humans share with all life forms a biological predisposition towards self-preservation in the service of reproduction, we are unique in our capacity for symbolic thought, which fosters self-awareness and the ability to reflect on the past and ponder the future. This spawns the realization that death is inevitable and can occur at any time for reasons that cannot be anticipated or controlled, as quoted by the Ernest Becker Foundation. Soon after came the green and home funeral movements of the 90s and 2000s, prioritizing family and connection to nature over traditional funeral services. Green burials are simply holes dug into the earth with a body placed inside. No casket, no coffin. Popular, especially in Wiccan and pagan communities, where a high priestess or family member leads the service, though certainly not all green funerals are led this way. Home funerals are simply a return to the ancestral funeral, end-of-life care handled entirely by family, and funerals held in the home. In 2011, the Death Cafe was invented by John Underwood in London. People gathering, having tea and coffee, talking about death and loss. No judgment, this was the space to do it in. The movement spread, and we ourselves had a death cafe in the shop for many years. This was also when the Order of the Good Death was founded, promoting alternative death care and advocating for funerary rights. Yeah, I am so pissed that I never made it to a death cafe, meeting or whatever else. Mm-hmm. I would sign up for them, and then something would always come up, and,
Maybe you should revive them down the road when you're a death doula.
Stop giving me ideas, woman.
You know me and my fucking ideas, dude. I have an idea at 8 a.m. and it is in fucking place by noon.
You know what? Good for you. I appreciate...
You're verterizing too. You can do this too.
Yeah, but I have things in my mind called mental illnesses.
Oh, I have none of those.
Oh, God. Many issues are at the forefront of death advocacy. Fetal burial legislation, femicide, systemic racism, and LGBTQ rights, especially for trans people. We must talk about death, and much more often if we want to see all of our dead's wishes respected. Western culture is obsessed with immortality. We don't enjoy talking about death, we don't like looking at it, we don't like grieving, and we have little in the way of participatory ritual to guide mourners or the deceased. This is where our obsession with youth comes from, the fact that old age is somehow the worst thing in the world because of its proximity to death. As many people can attest to, grieving has been relegated to psychotherapy and self-help, and while some grief deserves to be handled with the care of professionals, we too often refuse to allow ourselves mourning and further increase the chasm between life and death. Non-Western cultures have retained their rituals and have less discomfort with death, decay, and loss. Talking about death, even when you should or want to, can be extremely difficult or impossible. If you're afraid of death, even harder. While we, two simple witches, cannot hope to cure all of these things, we can make the conversations easier. When you think of your fear of death, what is it about death that is so frightening? Exactly what it is. Name it. Out loud when you're ready. Knowing what about death scares you can help you to find ways to cope with it. All people fear death a little bit, even those who make their peace with it. Again, your mind was not made to process this. Be ready to be rejected. It's okay for people to not be comfortable with death and not want to talk to you about it. Come back and try again. Start early. Don't wait until someone is on death's door to have that conversation. Have sympathy and use your feelings. The older people get, the scarier death becomes because it becomes real. Make sure they understand that it affects you too. I would be terrified if you died and I didn't know what to do or what you wanted. Prepare facts and statistics and expect those to be rejected as well. Ask questions like, what are you most afraid of death? What do you hope most for your death? What medical intervention are you comfortable with? How do you want us to take care of your body? Would a funeral service or a service of any kind make you feel honored? And be kind to yourself. Death may be a part of life, but you do have to live what's left of it and enjoy it. And know that you are adequately prepared for the next great adventure. Ladies and gentlemen, good night. Sleep with the fishes.
That was one of the most enjoyable half hours I've ever spent.
Oh, well, Vera, how could you?
Poor Ruth.